You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Gene Johnson.
The AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California. Presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AfterBuzz TV's Bates Motel After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's Bates Motel After Show.
Yes. So this is your music. It's your kind of, just the...
When you're dancing with your creepy mom, this is the song you want to be dancing to.
Yes. Well, and
then bring her back.
And well, she is his dream lover.
Yes.
Oh, it's his dream lover.
Yeah.
From that last scene, that was his dream lover. Yeah. His dream mother.
And he also dreamed about Miss Watson. He had a dream to remember the Miss Watson thing.
Yes.
Welcome to the Bates Motel AfterBuzz After Show. We are here for the season finale. Is that Lemieux doing?
Lemieux is crooning.
Some harmonies.
Sounds remarkably like a dog has been run over by a car.
Thank you for joining us.
Coming from Joe Sanfilippo about singing, that's
rough.
That's
That's
rough.
how bad that is.
Thank you for joining us for the season finale of the Bates Motel AfterBuzz After Show. Well, season finale for us and the season finale for Bates Motel. What a wonderful, wonderful, lovely show. I'm joined as always by everyone, including me. First of all, I've been gone for 2 weeks. By Dua Casey.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Dua. Joe Sanfilippo.
Nice to be here with you guys.
And Nando Velasquez.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming, and thank you for coming, Joe Sanfilippo.
Yeah, band's back together
Thanks for
again.
coming back
And
in.
the silver tones of Stephen Lemieux.
Whoa.
There he is.
There it is. Yeah.
Totally out of tune, of course.
Yeah, man. So that happened.
Yeah, it happened.
The Bates Motel. This is a good series. This is a great season. What a spectacular ending, by the way. We've been speculating so long about when are we going to get the turn, when we're going to get the answers, and I mean, what just a great job of doing, this origin story, which we've all talked about and love. We all know what's going to happen to Norman. We all know what's going to happen to Norma, but to see how it happens and when it happens over these last 2 seasons has been just fun to watch. And then we also get this really cool story of the town and the weed trade and lovely characters like Alex Romero, and it's just been a wonderful season. I'm really, really, really love what I saw so far. This is my first impressions. What do you think, Dua?
I loved it. I think, I thought this ending was so good, and you could almost tell that they wrote it before they were signed on for season 3. So this, in a sense, wrapped up and tied up a lot of loose ends.
You're right. Could have been the end of it.
It could have just been the end of it, and it would have ended, really nicely, and then just left us to, I just thought it was just so well done, and it's so genius, and I'll get into that just a little bit later with, the decision that they made towards the end with how they wanted to do that. It was smart on so many different levels.
Very much so.
I thought that everything was great.
Right. We'll talk about that last sequence, there's a lot happening. Actually, that last 5 minutes, including what happened in the woods, we'll get into that. We'll dissect that, as well as everything leading to that last scene. Joe, what do you think of the episode?
I loved it.
And the season, for that matter.
For me, you know that my love of Vera Farmiga runs deep.
I haven't heard that.
I may have mentioned in the past. I'm not sure. I may not have mentioned.
You can always refresh my memory.
I feel that Vera Farmiga wins acting.
Yes.
I think all of it.
I've heard that.
I think she is the most talented actress. I think she blows my mind every week, and it's such a privilege and pleasure to watch her. And she never just never disappoints. It's just unbelievable watching her. Is such a joy, and the rest of the cast is fantastic. And it's so nice because the level is so high that if everybody else was on any other show, they'd be the killer, but because Vera's there, she's the stone cold killer.
Right.
I'm just a huge fan. I love what they did, and I love like you said at the end, that wrap up was terrific. Could have been the end of the show. It's a great setup for season 3, and it's goodbye to the boy. It's goodbye to the boy that didn't know, and it's goodbye to the mom that could pretend she didn't know. All the what do you call it? All the well, I guess she could still pretend because he passed the lie detector test.
Well, there is that, and I'll get to your thoughts, Nando. But there, Entertainment Weekly asked that same question: Is this goodbye to Norman? The answer is yes. I mean, the Norman, sweet little
it's over.
Norman
Yeah, that's done.
Is done, and this is birth to the Norman Bates that we know from the Psycho movies, and to see how this continues and how he ultimately takes care of his mother. In all ways.
And now we see why, because she did the murder in his head, so he's got to punish.
We'll get to that.
Very interesting.
Nando?
Yeah, I echo everything that you guys have said about this finale. It's really, really amazing. You know what I think is also interesting is the relationship with Norman has changed, but also Dylan has taken a major turn. In fact, they've almost switched roles in a weird way. In a little odd way. I mean, her telling Dylan "I love you." Yeah. Early on in the episode, when she realized Dylan rescued Norman, that really touching scene out by the pond when she was talking to Dylan about going to Montreal, and Dylan starts to act like typical Dylan. Also, she's like, I bought 3 tickets, and
you bought me a ticket.
Yeah, you bought me a ticket.
Yes.
It was kind of interesting how Norman's kind of grown up in a way, and Dylan's kind of gotten to be the little kid that gets his mom back in a way.
That was a very touching scene. I think 2 of us in here might have teared up. I'm not saying which 2 they were.
But they were Joe and they were Joe.
They were Joe and Joe.
Yeah.
I did not cry.
Blubbering like a baby.
No, it was it's some great stuff. And I just also want to just give all props to Carlton Cuse and I'm blanking on this co-creator.
Carrie.
To Carrie. I mean, this was a master class in sort of storytelling and script writing. I think this as a finale, we talk about, season finales, and usually season finales end with a bang, an explosion, or a murder, or something crazy. And this kind of solved, it got rid of all the Nick Ford stuff, up top. And then we resolved the Zane thing in the middle and got really to Alex Romero's true nature as he's sort of the
no
true
holds bar, that guy.
Peacekeeper in the town.
Yeah.
Because his job is to, as Joe says, keep the ish in the horse.
The proverbial ish in the horse.
And but we really just sort of weaved in, and we very artfully closed this loop between Norma and Dylan, and had some reconciliation there, and a real genuine moment between mother and son, as dysfunctional as it may be, and that family is sort of back together. And then we have Norman really just realizing that the realization that it was him that did that, and him not being able to live with himself, and then be able to come full circle and give himself that psychological break. So see it really manifests itself by realizing it wasn't him, that it was his mother. He's trying to protect him, and don't tell anybody. He's like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And to see that thing birth, I mean, to have all that story accomplished in 44 minutes was just a masterclass.
Genius.
Yeah,
it's
very, very good.
So good.
To wrap up this entire season, which was a lot going on, and just doing a lot of after shows and doing some other shows which may not do as well with the storytelling following, and others. But
oh my goodness.
Joe, knock it out.
We spend any other podcast talking about this. Every other one.
But it's really a pleasure to see some really great storytelling.
Well, it's such an interesting time. I think we talked about this over and over. The golden age of television, the post-secondary golden age, whatever the current term is.
There's an official word that came down.
Tertiary golden age.
It's the third golden age.
Third wave, golden age, whatever. I think there are some. It's interesting to me how uneven TV is. There is some amazing television, and there's some really, really, really good. And it's glaring when you're not. Shows like Bates and Mad Men, they take storytelling to this artful level, and you got to trust your writers, you trust the showrunners, you trust people who are creating something unique. And so then when you see something on network that is so repetitive and serialized and been done before, it's doubly boring, because there's so much good stuff being done. And so it's really a treat to work with a show like this. You can actually sit and talk about, because there's something to talk about.
Yep, very, very good stuff. So let's talk about this episode. So we open where we left off, which was Dylan killing. Now, was some debate whether or not Nick Ford was dead.
Nick Ford was dead
for a second there, but he's very dead.
Yeah,
your face doesn't do that thing.
That's one thing I will just say. If I want to really poke holes in anything that could use a pinprick to poke little tiny holes into something, is that Nick Ford's gigantic drug empire toppled very quickly.
They're weed people. They're not coke people.
Right. Well, this just the death of Nick Ford. Everyone just starts raiding. The guys all bug out and start raiding his safe, and that's it. It's like Ding Dong, the witch is dead. It's like that's it.
Well, they're weed people. They should have raided the fridge. That's what you're saying.
I think that
after all that fuss over Gil, after all that fuss over Gil,
This is all new. This is, I mean, these guys they're running. I mean, the weed runners are a different universe from coke run. I mean, you're talking about billions of dollars versus a few $1 million. I mean, it's a very different universe. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they're not as cutthroat. They're not as bloodthirsty. They're not as, you know, and maybe this is, and again, since none of us are actually
I was going to say,
or
what expertise do you have this
Yeah,
on?
that's a fair point.
Yeah.
This is an extrapolation based on a complete lack of knowledge and mostly based on what I've seen on television. So maybe not to be taken all that seriously, but maybe to rationalize, I would say that they're smuggling weed, so it's probably not that big.
I was saying instead of raiding the safe, they should have been raiding the fridge. Dude, it's just the weed.
Oh man, they got
that's
Our boss is
So
gonna.
I mean, that was. I mean, I agree. And then to have. So we go and we see that we see Sheriff Romero, come to the aid. And I love the idea of the buddy cop movie of Romero and Dylan like taking down the weed cartels or whatever.
I really like the
town.
choices Dylan made because there would be a temptation to kind of have Dylan chasing him and doing. But I like the way that they made him very, very other. They made him very separate, and Romero told him, hey, stay here. Your job is to do what I tell you. Just stand here. Don't move.
Yeah, this was really Romero's episode to shine. He was a badass. He was no holds bar. He, ended up getting his revenge. He was just so good.
This was very reminiscent of last year's season finale. He seems to be the person that ties everything together.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big episode for Romero last season too,
Mm-hmm.
and he of course covered up everything that went on to protect the family.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it makes sense. I mean, this is the first time we really get a sense of, and Nestor talked about here when he was sitting right here in this chair. I think I was sitting there.
And I was sitting right over there.
You were sitting right over there. No, but I remember, we talked about, what is Nestor's,
I remember it well.
what is Sheriff Romero's motivation? What is his thing? And he is the proverbial, peacekeeper in the true sense of the word. Like, he understands what it takes to make this town work, and he understands the money and the economic value that this weed business brings in, as long as it stays in check. And I think he had the balance going right. Things got out of balance.
Zane was out of balance. Now Zane is. Then we're back in. We're not back in balance. We have a vacuum now. We have big trouble.
Vacuum,
There's a
but
void.
Dylan will hopefully step up and fill that vacuum and consolidate both weed businesses. And
Well, that's if Dylan wants to do it, A, and B is able to do it because.
that's a good, interesting way to maybe get into season 3, because someone's going to come in like Romero said, someone's going to come in.
Yeah, power abhors the vacuum.
Yeah.
It will
What I
not
thought-
tolerate.
What I thought was really interesting when Romero said it at that point was also he said someone who he wants someone there who has to understand the rules. The rules are what make it possible for us to live together in a peaceful manner.
Absolutely.
And I think
Right.
it's really interesting for 2 reasons. I think it's interesting that this is the law. This is the sheriff of the town, and he's not saying someone needs to understand the law. Someone needs to understand the rules.
You're 100%
Yeah.
right.
And then the second thing that I think's really interesting is, I don't know, that just felt like such a line in regards to Lost. It felt like another throwback to Lost with the hatch. It's Carlton Cuse, so those little references, but really there were a lot of rules when it came to that island and doing the number
I do
sequencing
agree.
and
You're
everything
right.
like that. So I'm not trying to dissect every single thing into it's a Lost thing, but for some reason that could really explain what the island in Lost was about. So it almost makes me wonder, what other comparisons this White Pine Bay has again to what they created to the island. Yes.
Dua?
Sorry. Without being mythical, without getting all mythical like Lost.
Well, one thing is worth pointing out with regard to Sheriff Romero is what he chooses to prosecute and what he chooses not care about. I mean, there were, Nick Ford was killed, Zane was killed, Zane's sister was killed. All these people are murdered, but we're not investigating that. We don't care about that. We've got stories for that, but we do care about whether or not Norman killed
Mrs. Bates. Not Miss Bates. Blair Watson.
Yeah, Blair Watson, Miss Watson.
Well, because it says about justice and not about he put
the
a wrong
weed
man.
business exists over here, but the law still applies to everybody else.
Sure.
And that's an interesting dichotomy. But it seems like Sheriff Romero really does have a very good handle on what is acceptable and what is not.
Well, I like the idea of that. The fact that the weed business does exist over there. It's very important to the town for a lot of reasons. I'm not going to go in and shut down the weed business. I've got to just keep the peace. I've got law to enforce here. I've got to make sure these guys aren't causing.
But it's
trouble
not
in
the
my
Wild
town
Wild
over
West,
there.
and that's what I think is interesting.
He's there to enforce that.
Yeah,
not to keep
that's
the
the
peace.
rules are still the law still applies to everybody else. If you're in the weed business and you do something to somebody else in the weed business, then we apply the rules. But the law applies to everybody else.
And of course, if you are not the reason why he wants Dylan is, better the devil you know than the devil you don't. So when someone comes in and he has to contend with a whole nother Zane or anyone like a Zane, then that's big trouble.
Absolutely.
Dylan was really forthcoming. At the very, very beginning of the episode, Dylan is walking across the street. Sheriff Romero drives up and he's like, I just killed Nick. Like, he's very, very open. I think that Sheriff Romero knows that Dylan is an open book.
Right.
I also think that there were two things that happened that were there were just such, I felt like the show went for the simple answers that were just brilliant. The fact that Zane killed his own sister.
Yeah.
That's huge. I did not see that coming.
No.
And yet when I look back, I'm like, that is such an obvious,
Well, he's so distrustful of
Yeah.
everybody and so
Exactly.
paranoid that he didn't fall for the trap that they set for him anyway.
And also, Romero kills Zane.
Perfect.
And the line that he gave, what was that line?
Remember I
He's
told you I'd
yeah.
burn you down?
Yeah,
Yep.
remember what I said?
I'm a man of my
Booyah.
word. Yeah.
Yes, that was
was-
a cheering moment because Zane was such an a-hole. But I will say this about Zane: we all thought Zane's such a big old dummy. Zane's not so dumb. Like he's not so dumb because when Dylan came up there to kill him, he was like ready for him.
Yeah.
There's no like, give me your gun, I don't trust you, whatever. See you later. I'll take your clip on the way out. Thanks, pal. And then when Jody's like, come home, Zane, he's like, okay, cut the lights. He was ready, even though it didn't work out for him.
Yeah.
He wouldn't just walk in like, hey, sis,
Yeah.
and get ambushed. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Zane, for all of his craziness, he wasn't at least a complete idiot.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Romero was quick. I mean, you could tell as soon as everybody was dead, he was like, all right, this is the story. Are you ready? He was like, bada boom, bada bing, bada bing. Like, it was all done.
May have
Yeah,
done
it's
this
not the
before.
first time he's
It's
wrapped
his
up.
first rodeo.
A situation.
Yeah. So then the other subplot we've got obviously is so they find Norman. Norman has had a really, really rough time in the box.
What's in the box?
And it's also very much it's also a great way to really sort of accelerate. You laughing at that old joke?
I know. It's an oldie. It's an oldie.
It's an oldie, almost a
Classic.
goodie.
Makes me happy.
Almost a goodie.
No, but yeah, it's a great way to accelerate this sort of Norman psychosis thing because we've seen Norman sort of be gently pushed over the edge, or these we know he blacks out, we know he gets angry, we know his things, but like to have him in that box, that's super traumatizing.
Yeah, if we've had a
That'll
psychopath
F anybody up. That'll
walking
F
on,
me up.
yeah, if we've had a psychopath walking on a proverbial tightrope for a long time, this is a
Right.
ball peen hammer that someone
Yes.
threw at his head, and he might have fallen off.
He is
Exactly.
very so that's
How do you make him
pushed him over
break?
the edge. Exactly.
Put him in a box.
Put him in a box. He did break, and he did see last week, which I wasn't here to talk about, which you guys did. We did finally get the answer. Norman did have sex with Amdua. Have sex with her.
Wait a second.
Did-
Wait a
wait,
second.
wait,
Are
did-
you
Okay.
sure?
Yeah,
Hold on.
Where does that?
I don't feel it.
I just want to say that it's the boys that bring this up. It's not me.
No, I just no. It's okay. So
I have a question for
I
you.
was wrong. Are you ready?
the
Are you
semen
happy?
just was not only in the boat. That's all.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
All right, because I want to continue this trend. Did Norma really have sex with her brother?
Yes.
Ray Dillon.
Yeah.
So that you believe?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
just
believe
checking.
that, yeah.
Okay.
I believe that,
Even
too.
with no semen proof.
I believe it. I believe it.
and the reason, and I'll say why later. The reason why I bring that up.
But did Norma have sex with Michael Vartan?
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
That-
she said
that
tried.
actually-
She said she tried.
But,
That's-
I think that
And that's
And
why
who
I
tells
thought
her
that
son I tried to have sex with that man?
Well, but the
I
thing
haven't
eat
is,
tried to
your
have sex
pot
with
roast.
him.
Ah!
wait a minute. So it's so funny because they had sex, right? It's
Yeah.
almost
Oh,
like
yeah.
she was
she took her
telling
panties
her,
off. That was close enough.
like her lover, that she didn't, and I tried to have sex with him, but we didn't have sex. Like she had to lie to her son because it
Ooh,
would
so
have been.
you're saying they
Right.
did have sex, but she lied to Norman.
Yeah, I don't
They
know
had
what
sex.
that
But that's
was. It
why I
was
wonder
weird.
if she. That's why I wonder if she's willing to lie about stuff like that.
No.
I mean, is there still a little mystery perhaps about Dylan?
No, I think no. I think that no, not at all.
They did it.
I think yeah.
Well, I'm so we see that the he's in the box. We see that we finally solved the mystery of what happened with Miss Watson in all ways, shape, and form, which we kind of all knew at the end of season 1 that happened, and we kind of through doubt maybe it didn't happen, and now we knew what we always knew, which is oh yeah, of course he's Norman Bates, he did it. So that was, but it's very that was also a very great some really good storytelling there, because at the end of season 1 we're like, of course Norman went in there, he did it, he killed her, but we spent an entire season 2 going like, well, wait a minute, maybe he didn't do it. So that was that was really, and then of course Dylan finds him. He seems to be normal, and then he is really has a very eerie, cold acceptance of sort of who he is. He initially tries to talk to his mother about it in a very classic Norma conversation, in which Norman tries to open up to her, and Norma says basically,
Tell me about your dreams later. It's fine. Just push it
Don't-
down. Push
yeah.
it down. Push it down.
push it down.
Push it
What's
away.
Book of Mormon, Joe?
So Book of Mormon.
Turn it off.
Turn it off.
Like a light switch.
Or
Turn
like
it off.
Frozen, or Frozen. Let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go.
So yeah, but very much like push
Yeah.
it down, don't talk about it until Norman just realizes he knows who he is. He has a very cool, calm, very calculated realization of who he is, and he prepares to do the worst to himself. He prepares to kill himself. He makes his list to organize his room. Finish the sparrow, the apple pie. He's to talk to mother, talk to Emma.
Nice little to-do list.
Which was a great scene, by the way. It was such a sweet
It
scene.
was a sweet scene. By the way, organize his room. What's he's got
What a
the
nice
lamp.
boy.
He's got
You-
the
you-
dog
you know.
and the lamp.
You got to put a bow on the whole thing. You got to make sure everyone knows that you were very carefully doing
Okay.
it. Bow.
But there's a dog and a lamp. How much organizing needs that? He's
the
in that
dog
room.
needs to
He
go
was-
in the
he's
thing. The he had
killing
to,
himself. He
Yes.
just wants to make sure that
Yeah.
everything, he was so organized in that.
that list.
Yeah.
Very good penmanship too, by the way.
Oh, really well written, very well written. And I got to say, it was a very interesting scene with him and Emma. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great, but it was it was one of those bizarre moments when I was trying to explain it to my wife, and then when in explaining the scene, you're like, okay, only in the context of the show does this scene not sound insane.
Right.
Like, listen, I love you. We want to welcome you to our family. And here's the thing. It's just that my mom banged my uncle, and that's who my older brother is, and that's what we
Yes.
couldn't tell you.
But out of all the secrets that they had,
So many secrets.
he gives away the biggest, hugest one, which
or
I
at
thought
least
was
the most
really,
damaging to everyone who isn't him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but that's
mean-
when they started keeping secrets from her. That's when it started.
Yeah.
It was, Norman was really open towards Emma, but when that happened, Dylan, he couldn't say anything. That's when he started keeping things from Emma. He always tells Emma everything. And then, with the kidnapping, of course, Norma didn't want to. Norma was like a teenage girl when she was walking up the
Always.
steps with Norman.
Always
and she's
like a
like,
teenage girl.
Emma's quitting. So,
Yeah. I don't know. But what are we supposed to do, Norman? I mean, God, again, very good at acting.
She
When's
just
acting?
lies. She just lies to her. And she's like, "Well, Emma's quitting," and I mean, I guess it makes sense. Yeah, I'm lying to her right now,
Right.
but yeah.
what are you going to do?
Yeah, what's we gonna do about
And
it?
speaking of Norma, I do want to touch on the Christine storyline, which we kind of wrapped up. We had all kinds of speculation about the true nature of George and Christine and what they're really up to and how and what.
And it's funny because it turns out that Norma was the one that
Yes.
was like vindictive, and they were fine.
and they were fine. It turns out they were really just, I mean, maybe we'll.
Well,
maybe
no,
there's
she's
more
getting
to it in
vindictive
season
now.
3.
She's like, "We're having the mayor over tomorrow.
Well, yeah,
we'll
of
see what
course,
happens
but I
to your
think that
seat."
we thought that there was always some ulterior motive to maybe the two of them. And, George really liked her, and Christine really wanted to be her friend. And I thought that was a great scene in the supermarket. I was really hoping for a Norma meltdown.
Do you
'cause
think?
she was
Do you think that's the end of Christine and George? Though?
absolutely not.
no.
Okay.
No.
No.
All right, cool.
Now,
But
this
the
might-
bypass is back on for sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah. I mean,
Because Nick was the guy who was the only guy who was actually knew how to wield power that was against it.
Yeah.
And Norma's seat is gone, most likely, right?
Well, Nick's gone. Nick was the guy who ensured that.
Yeah.
That
her
she was gonna
seat-
have
That
the
her
seat.
seat.
she was going to have the seat.
yeah.
That when the mayor is relieved now, like the mayor can finally do what he wants. And
Yeah.
Well, now this might be like I'm not. Does Norma know that Nick Ford is dead yet? Has that been passed on?
that's a good question. Well, I'm sure she knows.
I think at this
now.
point she does know
She
now.
must know at this point. By the time they did the polygraph, she has to know all.
You know what? Chances are she probably knew when Dylan rescued
Yeah.
Norman.
Well,
Yeah, they
does,
just
I mean,
chose not
does
to.
Norman even know that Nick Ford is dead? Because Norman was in the box.
Right.
I'm
Like,
sure they briefed them like in the hospital. I'm sure somebody must have told him.
Somebody.
I don't know. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how important that is to.
I mean, I would imagine
Yeah, the story.
whatever.
motivation.
I guess we can expect that whatever is going to be common knowledge, they know. I mean, and you're
More
not going to
importantly,
keep.
Christine know when she started being a bitch to Norma in the
Yeah, no more
supermarket.
protection for you.
Yeah.
well, yeah.
Interesting. So yeah. So that. So well, I like the resolution of the Christine family storyline. I mean, it talked about all of our
You
resolutions.
are a train wreck.
Yes, I love it. Like I said, I was really hoping to get it one last, Norma meltdown. Like, well, you're a train wreck. Like, one more, like one of those, but we didn't. She just kind of took it, and then explained it to. We talked about explaining to Norman. Well, I I don't know what happened. She got mad at me.
Yeah, that was actually a very mature way of handling it for once
Very
for her.
much so. So anyway, jumping back into Norman and his list and his things to do. He organized the he cleaned up the taxidermy. He finished the sparrow, which it turned out to be for his mother.
Very symbolic.
It's very symbolic. But beforehand, he wanted to spend some time with her, and he wanted to have one last nice evening with her, and he made some apple pie. They made apple pie together, and then they put on a little dream lover, had a nice little dance like when they were kids.
Very creepy.
And that's just the way it's just really interesting to think of the way if to get inside Norman's head, which would be scary, but to get inside Norman's head to think like these are the things I have to accomplish before I go. One conversation with Emma, a nice little day with my mother, organize my room, sort out my
Very simple.
taxidermy, and then I'm boom, good night. Like that's, I feel like there's a longer bucket list than that, but not for Norman Bates, But let's talk about this scene. So they were, a little close dancing and slow dancing there, and was that? We talk about their, sort of incestuous nature, but was that touching or creepy? Or how did you feel about that whole scene there, Dua?
I think that right now with the way the relationship has just evolved, I think that right now it just seems normal.
Yeah.
It's just the way, it's just the way it is. That, with Norma's kind of like history and kind of like she doesn't know how to make that distinction in that line. I just, I thought it was all very sweet, and I don't know if it's just because it was the season finale, and I know that we're not going to be seeing it again, but it didn't seem. Aside from the time that she kisses him on the mouth.
Well, we'll get to that.
That was.
We're talking about the other scene where they're
dancing.
She just has boundary issues in general. She just doesn't have.
Once you are aware of that and and you just accept that that's who she is, then everything else seems nice because for her it doesn't seem weird. She's just being close with her son.
But that's what's interesting about that night too. It's like Norman wanted to give her the night she wanted to reminisce and make it like old times, and he was willing. And in the past, we've seen him try and push her away. I kind of remember when she was trying to get Norman to sing Mr. Sandman a while back, and Norman was like, no, and she's like, that song, and then she finally got him to sing it. And this was all Norman inviting himself, like inviting her into his space and giving her exactly the memory that she wants before he decides to go off and finish himself.
Very much so. The wonderful trick also that they've played on this here, that they're able to accomplish, the writers, is making us really, really care and have some real touching emotional moments with this absolutely dysfunctional family. So, you kind of root for Norma, and you empathize with her and her love for Norman, and you root for Norman and his love for his mother, and then the scene that we love with Dylan and
so
Norma,
good.
and then the family's back together, and wait, they're all killers.
Well, Norma.
There's that, but aside from that, they're a sweet bunch.
Norma cried a good amount during this episode.
Sure.
Not once did it ever seem overacted, but the writing in that scene with Dylan was amazing when she was like, you're beautiful, and it's a miracle that someone like you could come out of something like that.
Yeah.
And Dylan, he was showing no emotion, but they just hugged. It was just so sweet. They spent a whole season just being mad at each other.
I gotta, the observation here to make about Norma in this episode is, there's no real crazy Norma here. There was no real nutty, crazy, irrational Norma. There was very much a mother who is very much loves nurturing, loving her kids. She's nurturing the whole way through. Was very remorseful about what happened with George to Christine. Felt remorse and scared about what may happen to Norman in his lie detector test. Accepted when Dylan says he needs help. It's your son. She didn't go, well, leave me alone, Dylan. Yeah. She very much was like, okay. And then when Norman came back from the box, the way she was there in the hospital, she told Dylan she loves him and all that stuff. Then all the way through the very end, when she chases Norman out to the woods, that was a very touching, loving scene. Except for the kiss, but
the way it was blocked too. We talk a lot about that. The way that she was on her knees. He kicked her. She was down on her knees, and so the position of power and the way that she nurtures and just grabs the back of his neck to kind of bring him back. I just thought it was
for the kiss.
I just thought it was blocked really, really well.
Yeah, no, the blocking was outstanding.
And then he's like, "Okay, mother, for you, I won't kill myself. For you, I won't kill myself." So that poses the question in future episodes and future seasons: how is that going to start building resentment when he's
and-
doing these bad things, and now he's there for her.
Well, let's get into it. Let's get into that.
Well, I mean,
that
and
final
the,
scene.
the other question is, yeah, I mean, so that scene in the woods was
Deep.
deep, and again, Norma Vera wins acting, but it's those moments where I love what she brings to it, because there another actress might throw that kiss out there and make it something different. But for her, she's got so much need behind everything she does. It feels like a natural extension, albeit a very creepy natural extension of her character. It feels like she finds the way to make that feel totally motivated. Again, Vera
Well,
Farmiga
that's what I
wins
was going to
acting.
say. I'm not sure that the actress throws that kiss out there. I mean, I'm
You
not sure.
can't- I don't know if you can pull
I'm
it
not
off.
sure that kiss was. I bet that kiss wasn't on the page. I bet that kiss was not on the page like that.
I'd be interested to find out, because
I bet you it was not.
you know, and it just and it flowed, so it's a kiss, and then off the cheek, and then the whole everything she does flows, and it never gets bogged down. She always has. She can. I love it.
And she makes it seem so effortless. It's
Yeah.
so funny because you seem like you're just gushing, but to do this well and not make it seem overacted or forced
I know.
is really hard.
People have no. I think people get mad at me because I say too much. That division. It's watching someone this good work. We take it all for granted, but you can't. It's so fucking good. Flipping. I didn't say that better.
Okay.
I caught that.
No. I dropped out the middle part. Yeah. So, but what he says at the end there, this is what's interesting to me. When Norma comes in, he psychologically projects Norma into the polygraph test, and she says, "You didn't kill." By the way, I love the way she plays his version of Norma, just a little bit different, a little more fun, a little more jovial, maybe a little bit
Yeah.
younger version of her.
A little spunky.
Yeah, right. We're having a good time. She says, "No, you didn't kill her. I did." And so that's interesting on a couple levels. Number one, from his point of view, does he now have to punish her? Is that how we set up Norma getting killed by Norman eventually?
Right.
Because now he on some level believes that she did this. Second question would be, is she now? Is that metaphorical? Is she metaphorically now responsible for, like you said a moment ago, for everybody he kills from now on, because she prevented him from killing himself?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
So now is he going to get resent? No, I just want to say something really quickly. Last episode, Sanfilippo, we were talking about.
What did I do?
You were saying once Norma finds out that Norman
That's the last
killed-
question.
Yeah, that Norman killed Miss Watson, she can no longer stand behind him because it will make her unsympathetic.
Right.
So what they did here was
Beautiful.
Norma now believes
He
that
passed the
Norman-
polygraph.
that he passed the polygraph.
So he didn't do it.
Right.
Exactly. So she can now still live in this, ignorant,
little
I'm
bubble.
just like a nurturing mother.
Yeah.
Well, Norman doesn't. He doesn't know what he
smart.
does.
He
He's
passed
so
the
sweet.
polygraph.
Yeah.
And that's what she's going to say.
We're going to hear that 30 times next season.
Well, so I want to get back to the woods, because I think that some of the things that she said in that speech were just so telling in terms of the turn here. The most telling thing being to her, like, we're the same person.
Yep.
We're the same person.
if you
know?
kill me, I'm sorry. If you kill yourself, I'll die.
Yeah.
Yes, you
Yeah.
know,
I'll die right after.
We're like the same person, and like in that whole thing, like, he says, "I'll stay for you." It's, Norman knows how to appeal to Norman's nature, but again, that, being the guy who coming out of the box, already having the blackouts, being where he is, already pushed over the edge. This last thing, a guy who's going to go kill himself, and then has this conversation with his mother that says we're the same person. I can just see
Just
it just
bring it, yeah.
fusing, like right there in that moment, and then literally sealing it with a kiss. Like that, all that close talking they were doing to each other, and it was so intimate and so like, we're the same, and I love you, and I love you more than anything.
And he's nuts. I mean, he had the crazy eyes,
The
and he's like, "I don't mean to hurt
crazy
you." He's like, "I'm
eyes.
bad. This is what I do."
And I just feel like that just, again, metaphorically, and that kiss personified the transference of, it's almost
yeah.
like,
I completely agree with you, and
putting
it
her
sets
soul
up
into him.
absolutely.
Into him.
And if it's and if it's such a joining, then maybe you can see him later on down the line going one of two ways to kill her eventually. Is he going to kill her as a punishment for killing other people that she didn't actually kill, or is he going to kill her as a way of attempting to kill himself? If we're the same person, if I kill her, will that actually kill me? Will this
Yeah.
all be over?
Right.
Yeah.
It's it. So that to see that was some really good work. Anything else to add on the woods, Nando?
On the woods, I mean, I think what's really interesting about this episode, we look at Norma, she's definitely grown in this episode. We've already said no major meltdowns other than screaming after Norman when he was running off.
Norman!
That was about the other time we both made a little laugh when she did.
Like, there it is.
But what I think is really awesome about this too is this is a totally different side of Norma. She's grown up. I also definitely want to talk about her relationship with Alex, as she likes to call him this episode.
Well,
Mr. Alex Romero.
Did your laundry.
Yeah, but I mean, no, but she actually, just the loving way she called him Alex in this episode, I thought was really interesting. But what it just sets up perfectly is for that dream sequence to see a different, the Norma that Norman's dreaming of, saying,
Yeah.
you didn't kill, I killed him. And I thought it was just so perfect and so beautiful because we're just so at ease with Norma this episode, just to see this is how Norman is looking at her in this dream.
Well, let's get, and those are all great points, and I, let's talk about that last sequence, the lie detector sequence, which is again a brilliant sequence, and that bit where we see the Norma that Norman sees.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that Vera Farmiga. You want to talk about her being good at acting and winning acting? Like, she was scary
and so subtle,
and
but
so subtle,
subtly
but
sweet.
I was creeped out by her like I'd never have. You didn't do it, I did it, and I was like, oh my God, you did it.
I love the way that scene was shot. If you see, it was just like kind of just up like with the headshot, and it just kind of kept rotating and rotating because you're now kind of like seeing. It's almost like in his mind. It's just kind of going around and around. It
Exactly, and then you see the turn happening because of course we have that again. Freddie Highmore, good at acting too, by the way. I keep saying that. Like, don't
good at
this
acting,
guy. He's doing it. Because in that scene where it's rotating around, when he's like, did you have sex with Miss Watson? Yes.
Yes.
The smile and the eyes, like he was really so that transformation was happening there.
Yeah.
But then finally, like, we've been wondering how are they going to do it? How are they going to make this final transformation? How is he going to become Norma? How is this going to happen? And to see it in that scene where he asked about who killed, well, did you kill? And then to have Norma pop up. And then that was just amazing. But
so good.
They've done such a great job also of not being overly gratuitous with all of the Hitchcock references and the Psycho references visually. I mean,
Yeah.
But they did this one. They did the iconic, pan around to the iconic, picture of Norman, head down, head up, just like being a psycho, the slight smile with Vera Farmiga over the shoulder. And if you caught that too, like Norma was walking into frame, so over his right shoulder. She was in the shadows walking in the frame with the right shoulder. While he was looking up. That was an incredible still image.
They did another one too. Did you guys catch it?
No, which one?
The scene after he retrieves the gun from the dresser, they show the next scene is Norma in the rocking chair, just rocking back and forth.
Oh, no.
Very slow cadence.
I didn't see that.
Very specific cadence.
Yep.
So, anything else you want to add on that last scene, Joe? On the
I said my piece. I love that. I love how she played it. I love how he played it. And I think at this point, like we said at the beginning, farewell to the boy, because that is the truth.
Yeah.
At that point, I think we're all being it's very clearly led to believe that he is aware that he has beaten the polygraph.
Right.
I don't think that, that's the impression I got. What did you guys think? Do you think that last shot where he looks up and he's got that slight grin and he's got that maniacal look, do you think that he's aware that he beat the polygraph, or do you think that he believes that his mom did it?
He believes his mom did it.
I think
you think he believes.
Yeah, I don't think he I got them now. They think no. He believes like his mother. That's why he's able to beat the polygraph. Yeah, that's why he's able to.
I think actually, I agree with you. I think he was actually black. It was a blackout moment for him.
He was Norma in that moment because in that scene when he's in the hospital, like in Psycho, he's his mother, and that's why he's smiling. So that was him being Norma.
It was a very Gollum moment, kind of like him talking to himself there.
Very scary.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because a very Gollum-like moment, but instead of him talking to himself like a Gollum character, he's talking to his mom because that's who he's being right now.
I wouldn't even harm a fly.
Yeah.
Last words of Psycho. So now we've solved the mystery, like in terms of the origin story of how Norman becomes Norma. So now in season 3 and maybe 4, we can start to begin to solve the mystery of how Norman ends up killing Norma.
Yeah.
Because he loves his mother, and we know that ultimately matricide, as they say it, Joe, in your 40s voice or whatever.
All right, fine. Matricide.
Thank you very much. And then, like they say at the end of the Psycho, it's the 60s actually, but still. So we wonder how now we'll get to see in hopefully seasons 3 and maybe 4, how this matricide happens, because it's a guy who loves his mother, but we know ultimately he kills his mother, and becomes her. So we'll see how that happens.
So I would love to be a fly on the wall of that writer's room.
Oh man,
Just
they-
like how
it's so
all of
much
this really
fun.
comes to fruition. I wonder like how many
Yeah.
different versions they have, like what might have happened, what they decided not to go with.
Sure.
You know, it's just.
Do we want to jump into some predictions for season 3?
Yeah.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
I'm going to start actually this one. I'm
All right.
it's not a season 3 prediction, but I will.
This better be a good one.
It's good. I predict Emmy nominations for Freddie Highmore and Emmy nominations for Vera Farmiga.
I'll take it.
I
Freddie
will
Highmore did
hope.
really good this
I
episode.
predict.
I will hope for the first one, but if the second one doesn't happen, I will burn down the town. That is
Burn the town down.
ridiculous.
Okay, that's
Not
update.
in my town.
Obscene.
Yeah, not in my town. I'll
Not
let
in
Romero
my
catch you. Predictions, Tua?
Man, I love Romero. Is he just gotten sexier since he's been on this show, or is it just me?
Oh, he's sat next to me, so I think some of my sexiness.
I see.
on him.
Is that what that was?
Maybe.
He was pretty quick to clean it up.
I don't think that Dylan is going to take over the Weed Town.
I was
think-
going to say that.
Oh, I'm sorry. The only reason that I don't
You
think
said
is
it better
because
than me.
He's going to have to make too many decisions that are going to compromise what his character is. He's too much of a kind of like a right-hand man
Sure.
and a protector. So I think that somebody is going to swoop in. We're going to have some new people this next season.
We do need a town story. We have the Norma story, but we do need the town's a character, so we need some story there. Joe?
I'm agree with Dua there. I don't think he's going to take over. I don't think he's got it. You got to have some it. I don't know if he has it. I mean, that's a tough thing to do.
I know, and he's rocking that big beard in the after show. Like he's got the
I ain't got no comments about
lumberjack
that beard.
beard.
Gone all Dexter.
Yeah.
But I think for Norma and Norman, I think we're going to have so much tension, and I think that Norman is going to I think by maybe the third
Kill
episode
people.
by the third episode of next season
That's
I
right.
think
Here's the
I
fun
think
part of the
Norman's
show.
going to know who he is. I think there's not going to be any questions. I mean, he may still. I mean, that whole thing may have been a break, and it may have been a blackout, and it may be weird. But I think by the third episode of next season, he knows who he is, and I think that's going to make him a lot more interesting and dangerous to watch.
It'll be interesting to see. Like we know what happens when there is no Norma and Norman becomes Norma, like in Psycho. But when Norma's standing in front of him and he blacks out and he's Norma, like how does that work? Like in other words, if he's talking to his mother, he blacks out, becomes his mother. Like how does that work exactly? So that'll be
Fun to watch.
It'll be interesting to see.
Does you see Norma talking to herself through her
We
son?
can see Norma making out with herself.
Oh.
Nando.
Is that like perfect for me? Like perfect acting win in the universe?
Something out of Orphan
Prediction?
Black. I predict. I like your predicting. I'm going to say I'm going to add to it that you're also going to get a Best Show nomination. How about that?
Good.
Let's
take
do
it.
that one for
Very
starters.
good. I predict that Emma doesn't quit.
Okay.
Emma does not quit.
Yeah.
No way does Emma
It was
quit.
British. I didn't know Olivia Cook was British. Where was that?
She was British all her life. She's been British.
Oh, look at you.
Look at
Hold
you.
on.
Oh, the rain and Maine.
Thank you so much for joining us for seasons 1 and 2. 20 episodes of Bates Motel. We love it.
In the can.
In the can. Looking forward to season 3. Thank you very much, and we will see you next year.
Woo.
Where can we find you guys?
Yeah, where can we find
Oh,
us?
thank you, Stephen Lemieux. Joe, where can you find you?
Who's driving
You
this
can't
bus?
find us anymore.
You can find me
the
at
cliff.
Joe Flippo on the Twitters, JoeFLIPO, or my website, Joseph Sanfilippo, JOSEPHSANFELIPPO.com.
Oh boy.
Say that 3 times fast.
I can't.
I'm Dua Casey. You can find me on Twitter, Dua Casey, DuaKissi. That is, or actually, you can find me doing Fargo later tonight too.
Oh, look at that.
If you watch a little Fargo.
Nando.
You can find me at Comic-Con at the After Hours
Oh, boy,
Bates
here we
Motel
go.
party.
No,
No, you can find me on Twitter at Nandovel, Nandove. Remember that, Nestor. Nandovel on Twitter, and also here on other AfterBuzz shows.
Nestor will not let you into that party for sure. You can find me, Joe Braswell, at Joe K. Braswell on Twitter and Instagram. Now I can say thank you very much for joining us for the last 20 episodes. We'll see you next year.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.